The Case of Chris Watts. It was a quiet summer morning on August 13, 2018, in Frederick, Colorado. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a gentle glow over the suburban landscape. However, within the home of Chris Watts, a series of events was about to unfold that would forever change the lives of many. Shanann Watts, a loving wife and mother, had just returned from a business trip. Her daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3, were sleeping soundly in their beds. The Watts family appeared to be the picture of happiness, but beneath the surface, there was tension. Chris Watts was a seemingly devoted father and husband, but he had been hiding an affair with a co-worker, Nicole Kessinger. As his relationship with Nicole intensified, Chris's feelings towards his family grew cold. He was contemplating a new life, one that didn't include his wife and children. On that fateful morning, Shanann texted her friend, expressing concerns about her marriage. Little did she know, her worst fears were about to come true. In the early hours, Chris confronted Shanann in their bedroom. "We need to talk," Chris said, his voice flat and emotionless. Shanann, groggy from her trip, sat up. "What is it, Chris? What's wrong?" "I want out," he replied bluntly. "I can't do this anymore." Shanann's eyes widened with shock. "What do you mean, out? We're a family. We have children." Chris's face twisted with a mixture of guilt and anger. "I've met someone else. I want to be with her." Before Shanann could fully process his words, Chris made a decision that would change everything. In a fit of rage and desperation, he attacked Shanann. The struggle was brief but intense, ending in tragedy. After the horrific act, Chris stood over Shanann's lifeless body, his heart pounding. The realization of what he had done started to sink in, but he was far from finished. Bella and Celeste, awakened by the commotion, wandered into the room. Their innocent eyes widened at the sight of their mother lying motionless. "Daddy, what's wrong with Mommy?" Bella asked, her voice trembling. Chris forced a smile, trying to hide his panic. "Mommy's just taking a nap, sweetheart. Let's get you back to bed." But Bella wasn't convinced. Her eyes darted between her father and her mother, sensing something was terribly wrong. Chris, driven by a twisted sense of necessity, knew he had to act quickly. He led Bella and Celeste downstairs, where he faced a heartbreaking decision. He knew he couldn't leave any witnesses. In his panic, Chris made a series of devastating choices, leading to a tragic end for his daughters as well. With his entire family now gone, Chris moved with cold efficiency. He wrapped Shanann's body in a sheet and bundled his daughters' bodies into the back of his truck. Driving to a remote oil site where he worked, he attempted to cover up his crimes, disposing of the evidence in a way he hoped would never be discovered. The sun was fully risen by the time Chris returned home, his mind racing to fabricate a story. He texted Shanann's friends and pretended to search for his family, playing the role of a worried husband and father. He even granted interviews, pleading for their safe return. Days passed, and the community rallied around him. However, the police were growing suspicious. Chris's story was full of inconsistencies, and they noticed his lack of genuine emotion. On August 15th, Chris agreed to a polygraph test. The results were damning. "Chris, the test indicates you're not telling the truth," the polygraph examiner said, fixing him with a stern gaze. "Where are your wife and children?" Chris broke down under the pressure, confessing to the crimes in chilling detail. The investigators were horrified by his cold demeanor as he recounted the events. The trial was swift. Chris Watts was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. As he sat in his cell, the full weight of his actions finally began to crush him. The haunting images of his family, the echo of Bella's final plea, played in an endless loop in his mind. The case of Chris Watts remains one of the most disturbing in recent history, a reminder of the horrors that can lurk behind closed doors. The Watts home, once filled with laughter and love, stood empty, a silent monument to the darkness that had consumed it. In the quiet town of Frederick, The memory of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste lives on, a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the depths of human depravity. The tale of Chris Watts is not just a story of crime, but a haunting reflection on the monstrous capabilities that lie within. The Grim Sleeper, the horrors of Lonnie Franklin Jr. Los Angeles, a city of dreams, sometimes conceals nightmares that lurk beneath its sun-drenched boulevards. In south-central LA, one such nightmare stretched across decades, hidden in plain sight. This is the true story of Lonnie Franklin Jr., infamously known as the Grim Sleeper. The first whispers of horror began in 1985. Debbie Jefferson was heading home after a late shift at the diner. The streets were quiet, an eerie stillness settling over the neighborhood. She quickened her pace, the dim streetlights casting long, sinister shadows. A car approached, its engine purring softly. The driver, a middle-aged man with a kind smile, rolled down his window. "Need a ride?" he asked. Debbie hesitated but ultimately declined, her instincts telling her to stay away. She couldn't have known how close she had come to danger. Not far from where Debbie stood, a woman named Deborah Jackson was not as fortunate. Her body was found a few days later, discarded in an alley. She had been shot and left in the open, a grim message to the community. The police, overwhelmed with the crack epidemic and gang violence, initially dismissed her murder as an isolated incident. Years passed, and the murders continued. Each victim was a woman, each death marked by the same brutal signature. The city was haunted by an invisible predator. But then, in 1988, the killings abruptly stopped. The nightmare seemed to be over. People breathed a sigh of relief, but the fear never truly dissipated. In 2002, the Grim Sleeper awoke from his long slumber. The body of Princess Berthomieu, a 15-year-old girl, was discovered in an alley. The horror had returned. The police were baffled. How could a killer, silent for so long, suddenly re-emerge? Detective Rick Morton stared at the crime scene photos spread across his desk. The images told a gruesome story. Each woman brutally murdered, their lives cut short by a remorseless killer. He knew they were dealing with a serial predator, but the trail was cold. Years had passed since the last murder, and any clues had long since faded. "Why now?" Morton muttered, frustration etched in his voice. His partner, Detective Laura Simmons, looked up from her notes. "He's taunting us," she said. "He thinks he's invincible." The investigation took a dark turn when Enietra Washington, a survivor, came forward. She had been attacked in 1988, left for dead by a man she described as friendly and unassuming. Washington recounted the nightmarish details: the car ride, the sudden shift from charm to violence, the gunshot, and her miraculous escape. Her description matched Lonnie Franklin Jr., a seemingly ordinary man with a wife and children. Franklin had lived in the same neighborhood for decades, blending in seamlessly. He was the helpful neighbor, the family man, the last person anyone would suspect. "Are you sure it's him?" Morton asked, his eyes searching Washington's face for any doubt. "I'll never forget his face," she replied, her voice steady. "He's the one." The police surveilled Franklin, gathering DNA evidence and piecing together the puzzle. It was a painstaking process, each step revealing the depth of his depravity. The final breakthrough came from a piece of pizza crust discarded by Franklin. The DNA matched the samples taken from the victims. In 2010, Franklin was arrested. The community was in shock. How could this man, a fixture in their lives, be a monster? As the trial unfolded, the horrific details of his crimes emerged. Franklin had a collection of photos and videos documenting his gruesome acts. Each image was a chilling testament to his double life. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence as the jury returned their verdict: guilty. Franklin showed no remorse, his expression blank as the judge sentenced him to death. The families of the victims wept, their long wait for justice finally over. But the story of the grim sleeper did not end with his conviction. The true horror lay in the unanswered questions. How many more victims were there? How could he evade capture for so long? The city grappled with these questions, the shadows of his crimes lingering. As night falls over Los Angeles, the memory of the grim sleeper remains, a dark chapter in the city's history. The tale of Lonnie Franklin Jr. is a haunting reminder that sometimes the real monsters are the ones we least expect. Remember, monsters don't live under our beds, Detective Simmons said to a group of new recruits years later. Sometimes they live next door. The recruits listened, their faces pale, the weight of her words settling over them like a shroud. And so the story of the grim sleeper serves as a chilling reminder. Vigilance is our greatest weapon, and the battle against evil is never truly over. The enigmatic death of Kenneka Jenkins. The clock had just struck midnight when the air at the Crowne Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel took on a strange chill. The laughter and chatter from a hotel room echoed down the hallways, blending with the thumping beats of a party. In the midst of the revelry was Kenneka Jenkins, a 19-year-old with a bright smile and dreams for the future. Little did anyone know, this night would turn into a chilling mystery. Kenneka had joined her friends for a party to celebrate a friend's new job. The room was filled with the typical signs of a good time: music blaring, people dancing, and cups clinking. But beneath the surface of normalcy, a sequence of events was quietly unraveling that would lead to a tragedy no one could foresee. "Hey, has anyone seen Kenneka?" asked Monifa, one of Kenneka's close friends, her voice tinged with worry. The others paused, exchanging uncertain glances. "She was just here a minute ago," said Shamaya, another friend, scanning the room. The minutes ticked by, and worry turned into panic. Monifa and Shamaya searched the hotel, their calls for Kenneka echoing off the walls. They checked the bathrooms, the lobby, even outside by the parking lot, but there was no sign of her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. They returned to the party room, hoping she might have come back. "We need to get help," Monifa said, her voice shaky. They hurried to the front desk, pleading for assistance. "We've lost our friend," Shamaya said to the hotel staff, her eyes wide with fear. "Her name is Kenneka Jenkins. We can't find her anywhere." The hotel staff were sympathetic but hesitant. It wasn't until Kenneka's mother, Teresa Martin, arrived hours later that the search intensified. Teresa was a force of nature, her determination palpable as she demanded the hotel check their security footage. By this time, the morning light was starting to seep through the windows, casting an eerie glow on the events that were unfolding. Teresa watched the surveillance tapes with bated breath. There, on the grainy footage, was Kenneka, stumbling through the hallways. She seemed disoriented, clutching at the walls for support. "Why is she alone?" Teresa whispered, her heart pounding. "Where is everyone?" The footage revealed Kenneka wandering into the hotel kitchen, a place she had no reason to be. Teresa's heart sank as she watched her daughter disappear from view. The staff quickly moved to the kitchen area, searching frantically. Hours later, the devastating news came. Kenneka's body was found inside a walk-in freezer. The door was heavy, the kind that closed with a chilling finality. How could this have happened? The questions buzzed around like angry bees, stinging everyone who tried to get close to the truth. The police investigation began, but it was shrouded in confusion and controversy from the start. The footage showed Kenneka entering the freezer area alone, but it offered no answers as to how or why she ended up there. Autopsy reports later revealed she had died of hypothermia, with alcohol and a medication used to treat epilepsy found in her system. The official ruling was accidental death, but for Teresa and many others, this conclusion left too many unanswered questions. The eerie nature of Kenneka's death stirred the imagination of the public, and theories began to swirl. Some believed there was foul play involved, that someone had lured her to her death. Others thought it was a cover-up by the hotel or the police. As the story spread, it took on a life of its own, becoming a modern urban legend. In the quiet of the night, whispers of Kenneka's fate would pass through the hallways of the Crown Plaza. Guests would speak of strange occurrences, a flicker of lights, an unexplained chill, the faint sound of a young woman calling out for help. The freezer where Kenneka was found became a place of dark fascination, a grim reminder of the night's tragic events. Teresa Martin continued to fight for answers, her grief turning into a relentless pursuit of justice. "I will not rest until I know what happened to my daughter," she vowed, her voice unwavering. The hotel, once a place of celebration, now stood as a monument to a mystery that refused to be solved. In the end, Kenneka Jenkins' death remains an enigma, a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit. It is a story of a night gone horribly wrong, of a young life cut tragically short, and of a mother's enduring quest for the truth. And as long as the questions remain, so too will the haunting tale of the enigmatic death of Kenneka Jenkins.